In this Premiere Pro tutorial for beginners, I will show you all the video editing skills you need to know to feel confident and ready to make your own amazing videos. We'll cover all the fundamentals of Premiere Pro and a few advanced topics as well. All of this in only 20 minutes, no time wasted, pure content. This is Edward Stinga from Videoplasty, and let's get started. Alright, so when you open Premiere Pro, this is the home screen that you see with a lot of your recent projects. And for our tutorial, we're going to start a new project here. And there's a few settings here that you can change, but the only ones that you actually care about is the title here on top. So just say tutorial. And the next one is the location, which is basically where you want to save your project on your computer. So just click OK. And here we are in Premiere Pro. And I know at first it might look a tiny bit overwhelming because there's a lot of windows and panels and you have no idea what this is. But first things first, you have to understand the way this works is that Premiere Pro uses different workspaces because there's so many different things you can do. In our case, and I believe this is the default one as well, you have to go here on Window, Workspaces and select Editing. And you can also do the exact same thing here on the top. You have the same workspaces. For most use cases, we will use editing and maybe sometimes color as well, which we will explore later. So everything's pretty empty. And before I give you a quick introduction to what everything actually does, it's time to import some media into our project. And you do that here on the bottom left. Premiere Pro actually even says import media to start. So you can either double click here and browse for some media on your computer. But what I do, and I know other people do as well all the time, is I have some footage already selected in a folder and just drag and drop it here in the media tab. And by default, it shows everything in a list view, but you can also switch to icon view to actually see your footage. And if you move your mouse over the video like this, you can actually preview what's inside every single video. I will go back to the list view. And one important thing to do is to always be organized and actually move things into their own folders. In Premiere Pro, folders are actually called bins. So I'll just create a couple of new bins. One is going to be footage and the other one is going to be audio. And then it's time to select all 4 of our videos, move them to footage and do the same for audio. Now in this case, we only have 5 files, so it's not very hard for things to get messy. But if you're editing a bigger project like a film, it can get messy extremely fast. So it's very important to always stay organized so it's easy to find exactly what you're looking for. Next, it's time to preview how each video looks like. And the way you do that is you can double click on them here or the audio as well. And you're going to see a preview here in the source panel. So for this particular video of myself, it's kind of long, it's 1 minute and 58 seconds. And let's say we don't want to use all of it, in which case we can use this window to preview exactly what it does, how it looks. And let's say we wanted to start here. So that's when you can click this button that also says mark in or use the I key on your keyboard. And then when you're happy with your selection, let's say you want to use it all the way to here, like around 5 seconds, you use this other button called mark out or the O key on your keyboard. And now we cut it down to only 6 seconds, as you can see here. Now it's time to import it on our timeline. And the way to do that is to drag and drop it here on the timeline. For example, if you wanted to import the same thing, but just the video without the audio or just the audio without the video, you can use one of those 2 icons. One is the film strip, which helps you import just the video. And the other one is the audio waveform icon, which allows you to import just the audio. And as you can see here on the timeline, this is where all the magic happens. And when I say magic, I mean video editing. And it's all organized in different tracks. On the top, we have video tracks, numbered 1, 2, 3. And on the bottom, we have audio tracks, again, 1, 2, 3. If you need more, you can definitely add more later. That's not a problem. So in this case, now we have the video and the audio separately here. But let's say, for example, we import it like this, and it's really useful that now it's connected. So if I move around one or the other, they're both moving at the same time. so they stay synchronized. But for example, let's say you want to disconnect the two, in which case you have to right click anywhere on it and click Unlink. And now we have the video on a separate track and the audio on a separate track individually, and I can manipulate and move them around as I wish. So right now I'm gonna delete this video of myself, and I will use this other stock footage that I have from the internet, drag and drop it here on the timeline. Alright, it's time to import the audio as well here on the audio track, and right now they're all pretty long and it's hard to actually see anything on our timeline, in which case we need to use this bar right here. So we can either use this to move further on the timeline, or you can grab it at the end to actually zoom in or zoom out to see more. As a keyboard shortcut, if you want to do that, you can also hold down the Alt key and use the mouse scroll to zoom out or to zoom in at a particular point. And if you're zoomed in, again, as a shortcut, you can hold down the Control key on a Windows or Command key on a Mac and use the scroll to just move forward or move backwards. So I'll just zoom out for now, and now it's time to do a bit of trimming, because all of this is very long, and you can grab either the video or the audio that we have here and just grab it at the end and move it all the way to here. But keep in mind, this pretty much removes all of that content and just cuts everything into a much shorter audio or video. And I'm gonna do the exact same thing with the video as well. Zoom in a bit because I can't really see anything here. Move them one after another. Alright, so I had to fast forward that, but I basically just adjusted the length of each video to make everything shorter and fit everything into just 15 seconds. And if you want to preview what you have here on the timeline, you can do so by moving this thing right here, which is called a Playhead. And wherever you put it, it's going to show you a video preview and pretty much an audio preview as well. And if you want to play back what you have, you can use the Spacebar or just click this button right here. Okay, time to explore some of the tools that we have at our disposal, but to be honest, in most cases, you're just going to use this thing called the selection tool with a keyboard shortcut V, and this one right here, that's gonna cut the video in half or split it basically with a keyboard shortcut of C. So with the selection tool, it's pretty much what we already did. You can just grab things and move them around. It's pretty intuitive. And the other one that I'll show you is the razor tool, which you can use to cut a clip in multiple different clips, and then you can use the selection tool again to just move everything around, for example like this, or select all of them and delete what we have. Let's say sometimes you have a couple of gaps here in between clips, and if you want to remove those gaps, all you have to do is right click and ripple delete, and it's going to move them one after another. Now, if you want to add a transition, that's actually very simple, and there's a quick shortcut in Premiere Pro for the default transition, which is Control D or Command D on a Mac. And as you can see, it just added a cross dissolve here in the beginning. It's a very simple transition. It's basically the standard, and you can grab it here at the end. If you want to make it longer or shorter, it's very easy to do. And if you want to add one at the end, you can do the exact same thing, Control D or Command D, and there you have it. Pretty simple stuff. And if you want to remove the transitions that we just added earlier, you can just right click and clear to remove both of them. Here on the timeline, you can also make the video track a bit larger like this, and the audio track as well. Maybe you want to have a better look at both the videos to see what's inside, or the waveform of the audio. And for the audio, you can also grab it here to just move this white bar right here to reduce the volume all the way to nothing, or maybe just a tiny bit in the background. And you can check out the levels here on the right to see how loud your audio is. And if you want to go back to the way it was before, all you have to do is double click here, actually do it twice, and it just goes back to normal. Now back to our transitions. Premiere Pro actually has quite a lot of transitions and other effects that you can find here in the effect panel. So let's have a quick look at video transitions. The dissolve one that we used before is right here called cross dissolve. This is the one that you can access with a shortcut. But let's say you want to do a cross zoom, for example. There's a lot of transitions. Feel free to explore. We don't have time to go through each and every one, but I'm just going to show you a couple of those. Personally, I like the really simple ones like cross dissolve or a zoom one. But let's have a look at barn doors as well. So you can add it here, and again, you can also play with the length of the transition. Let's see how that looks. Alright, that's pretty interesting, and I think it looks pretty good. Alright, now it's time to explore a few more effects that we can use here. And what I use all the time is the search bar here, because it just saves you so much time when looking for something. So let's search for blur. And I'll use this one called fast blur. Even if it's obsolete, I just got used to it from previous versions and I still use it because I just like it. And the way to add it is, as before, you drag and drop it here on your video. And as you can see now, nothing actually changed. Nothing is blurry because the blurriness is set to 0. And the way to change that is by going here where it says Effect Controls. And you need to have that specific video selected, which is the first one where we added the blur. And we have a few controls here, but here on the bottom it says fast blur, and the blurriness is set to 0. And you can either grab this and slide it to the right to make it blurry, or just enter any sort of value that you like. And as you can see, the video now turned a little bit blurry. But let's say we don't want it to be blurry throughout the entire video, just in the beginning as a transition. How do we change the blurriness over time? And this brings me to my next point, which is the keyframes, which are incredibly useful. If you look here on the effects panel, we kind of have something that looks similar to the timeline, but is the timeline for this individual clip. So this is where we can add what are called keyframes. And to add a keyframe for blurriness, you have to click this stopwatch right here. And wherever you see a stopwatch, it means that you can add a keyframe for that specific control. So at this point in time, we have the blurriness set to 30%. And now I'm going to move this all the way to the beginning of the clip, add another keyframe here by using this button. So we wanted to start at 30 blurriness. And if we move back to this keyframe right here, I'm going to set blurriness to 0. So basically the video now starts blurry and becomes sharp. And just to show you a bit better how this works, I'm going to add some other keyframes as well. For opacity, I will add a keyframe here. I will move my playhead here, add another keyframe for opacity. And let's say we want to go even a bit further, and I will use a scale animation as well, add another keyframe here. So now it's time, let's say I'm going to make the scale at 400 to kind of start zoomed in, and I'll change the opacity to 0%. So right now what the keyframes do, they basically control the value for scale, opacity, and blurriness, and how it changes over time from this point to this point. And let's have a look and see how this feels like. It's basically a sort of a in transition, you could say. Alright, I think that looks pretty interesting. And it's definitely a transition that you can manually do yourself as well. So feel free to play around with the keyframes to explore. I know it's a bit of an advanced topic, you could say, but it's incredibly useful. And of course, you can also add keyframes to the audio as well, which is something that I recommend you do, especially at the end. Because for example, right now, the music is gonna stop abruptly, which feels kind of weird, in which case we want to add a nice fade out at the end. And again, you go here to effect controls, and I will add a keyframe here for level, leave it at 0, and then all the way to the end, I will slide this all the way to the left in Premiere Pro, which is -287, which is absolute silence. And let's play it back and see how it sounds. That's definitely much nicer. It's a nice smooth fade out that works every single time. Another really useful shortcut that you can use in Premiere Pro is the tilde key, which I didn't even know exists on the keyboard or what it did. But in Premiere Pro, if you have a window selected and use the tilde key, it's basically gonna make that window full screen. So in this case, we have the timeline full screen. but maybe you want to preview this video full screen from the beginning instead of on this small window. And you select this panel, and as you can see, it has the blue borders, which means it's selected. Press the tilde key again, and it just maximizes that screen. And to go back, you just press it again, and you're back to the normal workspace. Alright, next I want to show you how you can add some text or titles in Premiere Pro. So for that, I'm going to select everything and move it a bit like this because I want to add it here in the beginning on a black screen. And the way to do that is you use the type tool here, and then you just click anywhere here and just start typing. So let's say opening titles. And if you select the selection tool again, you can move this around and just try to centralize it there. And if you want to edit the style of the text, you can go here on Effect Controls, and you will see that you can change the font, make it bold, change the size as well, align it centrally, and a lot of other stuff as well. And here on the timeline, you can see we actually have this thing, which is the titles or the text file. And for all intents and purposes, it acts pretty much the same as any video or audio that we have. So let's make this title screen a little shorter and actually add the music here as well in the beginning. And using the default transition and the shortcut Control D or Command D, I will add a nice cross dissolve for the title, and let's see how that looks. Of course, it's kind of fast and pretty short, but you can play around with those, with the timings, and adjust it to suit your needs and to make sure it looks amazing. So next, what I want to show you is something that's pretty advanced, but it's incredibly useful sometimes depending on your footage. Let's say, for example, we want to do some color correction on this clip. And the way to do that is we have to change the workspace from editing to color by clicking here or going to Window, Workspace, Color. And this is a pretty advanced topic and pretty complex and could be a long tutorial in and of itself. But in this case, I suggest you just play around with the basic correction and leave everything else as it is. And you can adjust the temperature a tiny bit, maybe give it a bit of a tint, maybe improve the exposure a tiny bit, contrast, make those whites really stand out, and a lot of other stuff as well. It's pretty much trial and error until you find something that you're happy with. Or if you're feeling lucky, you can also hit auto and let Premiere Pro do it for you. Or if you're not happy and want to remove it, just click reset and it goes back to normal. And I suggest when you're done with editing the colors, it's time to go back to the editing workspace because it's just much more streamlined and easier to use. So when it's all said and done, it's time to export the video. And same as here in the source panel, you can use those two buttons here to mark in or out the selection that you want to export. In our case, we want to export the entire video. So first point should be here at the beginning at 0 seconds and move it all the way to the end. If you hold down the Shift key, this is going to snap perfectly at the end. Mark that as the end point. And to export, you can go here where it says File, Export Media. And again, as with everything in Premiere Pro, you're going to see a lot of settings that look very complex. And to be fair, they kind of are. But in our case, it's pretty easy because we are going to use only the format, either H.264 or QuickTime MOV. But I suggest you go with H.264 and don't mess with the settings unless you know what you're doing. Personally, most often than not, I just go with the preset that says match source high bitrate. And the only other thing that you want to change here is the output name, which is basically telling Premiere Pro where to save the project and how you want to name your video. You also want to make sure you have both the video and export audio selected. Leave everything else as it is by default. And here on the bottom, you just click export if you want to export it right now. Or you can also add it to the Adobe Media Encoder queue if you have that installed, in case you want to add a couple of videos in the queue and encode all of them together. Alright, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to smash that like button and leave a comment below because it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you'd like to see more video tutorials like this and video marketing content, subscribe to this channel and make sure to add me on Instagram as well. This was Edward Stinga from Videoplasty. I hope you enjoyed this and I'll see you in the next video.